In the bleak midwinter, frosty wind made moan.
Hello everyone, and welcome to a winter edition of the Japan Cricket Podcast. Before the show gets underway, I wanted to inform you all that I'm currently collecting feedback on the podcast. You can find the form, which should take just a minute or two to complete, in the show notes for this episode, as well as on the show's Instagram page. It would be really helpful for me to get an idea of what you all like and dislike about the show and what direction I should take it in next. Since season 1 ended, I've enjoyed reminiscing about some of my conversations, and it has also become clear to me that while there are several committed serial listeners out there, who I love, a lot of people perhaps only listen to episodes where they know the interviewee, which is fair enough. So I thought it would be a good idea to unite all my listeners by including all my interviewees in one show. There were a lot of highlights from season 1, and since I don't have a production team to go through the 20-odd hours of interviews, I've been a bit selective, and I should warn you that this is my first effort undertaking an editing project quite this big. It has taken ages, so I apologise if the quality is a bit off in places. So regular listeners of the show will know that at the end of each episode, I would ask every guest the same set of 10 questions, firstly about cricket, and secondly about Japan. So I'm just going to run through some of the best answers we received there. And one of the first questions I would ask people was, what was the best thing they had ever learned from a coach? And over the course of the season, I got a lot of good answers on this one. So I'm going to include quite a few here. I'm going to start with the 2020 Japan Men's Player of the Year, Sabarish Ravichandran.
If you have to talk cricketing wise, like one of my coaches, like he focuses on fitness, is something like he taught me in a very young age that staying fit is going to like take you places. So one of the best things he used to like run with us as well. Like he was an example for us. So he set up as a role model saying that, okay, this is how we have to stay fit. So one thing, if I have to pick like one, fitness is something that guy has taught me a lot.
Of course, if you're going to get coaching tips, it makes sense to get it from the best around. So here is the 2021 Player of the Year, Mr. Vinay Iyer.
In batting, like when I used to go to bat, and my coach used to say that keep your focus on the ball always. From the time the bowler is having the ball in his hand, he's coming at you. From that time until he's bowled, until you hit the bat and the ball has gone to the fielder or to the boundary, your eyes should never go off the ball. And he has told me many times, and still I am following the same thing. So when the bowler is from his run up, I am concentrating on the ball. He always says the battle is not with the bowler, it's with the ball. So it's not, it doesn't matter who's the bowler.
Some useful tips for players there, but what about coaches? In one of the early episodes, I got Tokyo Wombats' Jared Shearer to come on, and he gave me a bit of insight into something that was said to him as a young kid that stuck with him throughout his entire playing days.
Something stands out, which is what else? 13 or 14, because I was being a keeper or off all my career. And obviously the higher I played, the less I kept because I live it good. So I had to field a lot. And when I was 13, 14, I did have a lot of confidence fielding. So my coach at the time grabbed me and said, look, you got big hands, they're like buckets. The ball gets in there, it's not going to go anywhere. So you got to have confidence in yourself. And from that time onwards, I had a lot more confidence fielding and actually started to enjoy fielding because, as you know, with cricket, you don't enjoy fielding. Bloody hell, you should be playing because, especially if you're a batsman and you don't bowl and you don't get any runs, half the times in the field. So, and I think it's something for coaches to know that sometimes just mental things, like a comment like that, I still remember, 30 plus years onwards, when coaches, give you a little bit of a pat on the bum or give you a talking to, or, try and give you confidence. Players remember that. So I think it's really important for coaches just to try and be as positive as they can for as long as they can, I think, yeah.
In episode 6 of season 1, I was able to welcome my first Japanese guest onto the podcast. Japan's number 1 groundsman, Yoshi Uehara. And Yoshi gave me quite an interesting insight into the Japanese mentality, at least in his early days of playing cricket, which hopefully has changed now. It's certainly changed for Yoshi.
It was from Charlie Berg. He questioned to Japanese cricketer, what is the most important thing for a batsman? So, lot of Japanese cricketers said protect wicket.
Not getting out.
So Shari said, no,
No.
it's not cricket. Cricket is making runs gate. Yeah, making run is very fun and best thing to me. So never think getting out. So I changed mind. Yeah, batting practice is not protect.
I've seen you batting in the nets, Yoshi. I know you're not trying to protect your wicket. As Yoshi rightly points out, batting is the most fun part of cricket. And one of my other guests, Kendall Kadawaki Fleming, was keen to make sure that everybody cashed in when they got their opportunities.
So our captain a few years ago for the North was a guy by the name of Brendan Nash. So he was our captain a few years ago. I did a fair bit of batting with him. I guess he was 4, I was 5, I think. And he'd just like relentlessly bang on. Like if you got to 20 or something, he'd just say, you have so many bad days as a batsman. Once you get in, you've just got to make the most of it. Like you've got to, or if you get some luck, come on, like you're going to have so many bad days as a batter, make the most of it today. So I feel like I've really taken that on board, and I've sort of tried to pass that on to a few of the Japanese boys that, if we get to 40, 50 in JCL, we shouldn't be getting out. Like we should be getting hundreds. So I feel like I'll bang on about it a bit, but I think hundreds are your currency as a batsman, and I don't want players to be happy with getting 50 in the JCL. I think all the boys in the squad are good enough to be making hundreds.
Talking about making hundreds, here's a man who made his very first Japan Cricket League century in 2021. He's the Japan Under-19 World Cup captain, Marcus Thurgate.
One that I remember really well is we used to have these coaches from Cricket Victoria come to coach with us. And in the 2016 East Asia Cup, we had David Reed, and I had so many people give me a lot of advices. I didn't know what to take, and he said, "Right, there's no one correct way to play," and I really think that that's true. And I always remind myself that there's no one way that's correct to play. So I think
Play your own way.
Play my own way. Yeah, backing myself. So I think that's the one that stands out.
So there's a bit of a theme around mindset developing here with a lot of these players. And that was something that continued when I spoke with Japan national women's team player, Erika Oda, who has spent a fair bit of time playing cricket in New Zealand. And she talked about the things she learnt over there.
I learned many skills in New Zealand, but I realized very important thing to play cricket is like mindset. My cricket coach always used to tell me that always next ball, always think positively. Don't worry about what happened. Concentrate on what's coming now. Past is just a story. That simple words gave me more courage.
The past is just a story. I like that from Erika. It was a nice touch. So one more on this question before we move on. Raheel Khanal, former national team player who still has his sights on getting back into the squad. Raheel takes the view that sport is to be enjoyed.
One phrase is like, enjoy sports, enjoy life. Richard told me that very early in my career, that enjoy sports and enjoy life. Everything happens in the life, but enjoy it.
So quite a lot of answers for question one, but I will keep to just a few for the next question because all of our guests had similar opinions, but starting with the most popular, I think, over the course of the series, the first man to give this answer was Mr. Chris Thurgate, way back in episode 2. So I will let Chris tell you where his favourite place to play cricket is.
You really can't beat playing at Fuji when the mountain's out. Yeah, I thought I'm finding it. It's magic. It's just magic. Yeah.
While Chris and a lot of others waxed lyrical about the joys of playing at the iconic Mount Fuji ground in Japan, there were, of course, a lot of honourable mentions for the Sano International Cricket Ground. But it's interesting when you think about the opinion of those from outside of Japan compared to those who grew up playing in Japan. We always tend to admire things from afar, don't we? And here's Erika Oda talking about her favourite place to play, which is not in Japan.
My best cricket experience ever is that I played the match at Hagley Oval in Christchurch. Hagley Oval is one of famous international New Zealand cricket ground, and I just remembered I was so excited because when I got the news from club manager that next place for the match is Hagley Oval, I was just in there and watching Test match New Zealand against India. So I couldn't believe that 5 or 6 days later, I would play at the same pitch. Now Virat Kohli and Ken Williamson were playing, and me, I was eating popcorn at the audience seat at the time. So, oh my God, what should I do? I was a bit panicked like that.
Yeah, that's cool. We want SICG to be like that in Japan. Erica seemed to think I was joking when I was talking about the SICG being the next Hagley Oval. So just to clarify, it was being 100% serious. The last one on this will be a Australian opinion. And as a Englishman who's just had the indignity of watching my team get humbled down in Australia, it's quite nice when someone from down under casts their eye across to the UK and speaks glowingly about cricket in my home country. Doesn't happen very often. Here is Dougal Bedingfield on his favourite place to play cricket.
One thing that kind of lives in my memory for a while was being selected to play for my school, and we toured England. We played 10 matches across England, playing at some of those beautiful schools in the countryside. So that's something I'd just love to do again one day. I haven't been back to England to play cricket for probably 25 years, so I'm about due. But there's something magical about those little grounds in the English countryside. Played it at one ground, which was in front of I think it was a 12th or 13th century castle. And that was the backdrop to playing cricket. So I'd love to do something like that again.
So over the course of season 1, I did realise how lucky I've been to have been around the world and watched cricket in so many places. And one of the questions I used to ask everyone was a favourite place to watch cricket. Now, the majority of people actually haven't watched cricket in that many places. They have lived in Japan their whole lives, or perhaps just from their home country and then moved to Japan. So perhaps just one or two options to choose from. So I'm rather blessed that I've been able to watch cricket in so many different places around the world. So the answers to that question were perhaps a little mundane or a little limited, with the exception of one. When I spoke to Shun Hashiba, he had a good story about when he was watching cricket in New Zealand and a particular occasion that he enjoyed, and the reason that venue became his favourite.
Dunedin.
Yeah, okay.
Dunedin. They play an international cricket match in the rugby ground. So when I was a uni student, the ground was called Carisbrook.
Yes.
Which is the most hostile ground in New Zealand because Dunedin. Yep. And because Dunedin is the student town. So the spectators, they are mostly student. And when I watched a game one day between Australia and New Zealand, one of the bowler, Brett Lee, for the bouncer to Adam Perori, who was the wicketkeeper batsman for New Zealand at the time. And the ball dislodged Perori's helmet, which went on to hit the wicket, was given out. And we know that's out now, but like students, they don't really care about rules. So they threw everything they had in their hand into the ground. The game stopped for like 40 minutes. That was a great experience.
My next question was around opposition players or teammates that my guests had played against or with, and who the best players out there were. Now, we usually asked around who are the best players in Japan and who are the best players elsewhere. Within Japan, the answers were often the same kind of guys: Sabarish Ravichandran, Alex Patmore, Patrick Giles-Jones, names that came up quite a lot. So I was more interested for this episode in players from overseas, legends of the game that some of our players have come up against in the past. And there were some pretty good answers out there. So first of all, here's Vinay again.
I think you asked me before with whom you played or against. in that match, which I played was like my coach, he was the coach for the West Zone in India, in Mumbai. And that West Zone team had come to Mumbai and he picked the best players from Mumbai other than the who are professionally playing. He picked me also to as an opener batsman over there. And in the opponent team, Chateshwar Pujara and Rohit Sharma were there.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And I was under 19 and they were under 17. And that is, even that time, they were saying that Chateshwar Pujara will be the next Rahul Dravid, the wall for India. And the way he batted, it was like, oh, I have so many things to learn from this guy. And he was smacking everyone. Even Rohit Sharma was hitting. And that time, Wankhede Stadium was having just one tire of this thing. And he used to hit 6 outside the stadium.
So Vinay came up against 2 Indian players who would go on to become legends of the game. And it turns out he wasn't the only one having that kind of experience. Across the other side of the world, in New Zealand, Richie Bracefield, who I spoke to later on in season 1, had a similar experience. I'll let him pick up the story.
Yeah, back in New Zealand, it's a pretty small country, relatively. So if you sort of in and around the traps with representative cricket, you're coming across some names that would eventually become big, and that was certainly my experience. So,
I was going to say a 14-year-old Kane Williamson might still be on the list as the best player you've come up against.
Yeah, and at the time it was just kind of out of obscurity, right? Like we were sort of crowding the bat, and I was sledging him from first slip, and then just pulls out a pure cover drive off our best bowler, and just sings to the bat. You can hear the seam just kissing its way across the ground, and you're just like, geez, this guy can play. But no, look, I've been fortunate I played high school cricket against Tim Southey. He was playing for King's College, and managed to score a 50 against him. So I remember that. He did get me out, but it was definitely not out.
Never.
No, I was never out. It was a clip around the fine leg, and the keeper took it. So it's no way. But no, look, Trent Bolt and his older brother Jono playing for Tauranga when I was playing for Hamilton. Mitch Santner was a tiny kid. I think he's still waiting for a set of adult male shoulders. But back then he was still pretty handy spinner and a very patient opening batsman. We're playing 2-day cricket against his Hamilton Boys High School team in the club comp. BJ Watling was in the same team, and we'd face these guys quite regularly. And Daryl Mitchell has been a recent sensation. Actually went to my school, and he was just a young kid, sort of coming up through the ranks as I was departing St. Paul's in Hamilton. Right? So look, lots of guys that ended up doing very well cricket careers, and Hamilton in particular was particularly strong at that time. Really.
So there's some stories of players who came up against members of the Japan cricket community when they were young and went on to have fantastic careers. Of course, for Marcus Thurgate, who captained the Japan under-19 team at the World Cup, he played against players his own age, under-19, who may yet go on to become legends of the game. They're certainly off to a good start when they're playing in the IPL and earning more than the JCA's operating budget. Let's hear from Marcus.
Again, in that World Cup, it's not every day you get to play against IPL players. Kartik Tyagi, I'd say, although I didn't score a run against him, but getting bowled by him is something that I can tell my grandson in the future. So probably
right. So that's playing against guys at their early stages of their career. But one of our players was fortunate enough to come across a legend of the game a little later on. It's back to New Zealand again, and Shun Hashiba.
Okay. Outside. That would be Richard Headley. Richard Headley.
Okay. Say it again. With or against?
With, actually, because it was charity match held in Tiano. I was in Richard Headley's team, and he was, I think, like 4 or 5 years after his retirement, but
still pretty good.
Still pretty skillful with the ball outside. He was bowling with 3 or 4 paces off, but still getting those provincial state players out. left island center. So it's good.
I'm sure Shun won't mind me saying that it was probably just as well that Sir Richard was on his team rather than the opposition. Things could have been over quite quickly. Now, that's a player at the end of his career, but what happens when a member of the Japan cricket community comes up against one of the world's best players at the peak of their powers? Well, Kendall Kalawaki Fleming can tell us.
Chris Lynn, I have to go back to. Like, I've played against a number of test and ex-test cricketers, but he's the most dominant player I've ever played against. He actually scored 2 double hundreds against my team in the space of a month, one in a 1 day out and one in a 2 day out. I just think he's the best ball striker I've ever seen, and how consistently he does it as well. So he's the best I've played against, I think.
I'm sure whilst Chris Lynn was racking up those 2 double hundreds, Kendall was probably quite grateful he's not a bowler. Of course, it's not just the men who get to play against cricketers at the peak of their powers. And once again, we go back to New Zealand, which seems to be the place to be if you want to get up against the players at the top. Erica Oda has a story of her own from her time down under.
Best player I've played against is when I was playing in New Zealand, one of famous white ones, New Zealand national player, Lee Tafufu. She was in the against team once, and I think last month she took her first 5 wicket in one day international against England. So I'm very happy person to be able to face her ball. I was so excited at the time.
Being the Japan cricket community, many of our players are shy, modest, and reluctant to talk about their own achievements. But I did like to ask everyone about their own career highlights. And whilst the answers were often typically modest, it was good to see that there was some passion and excitement about being part of the national setup. Here's Sabarish Ravichandran.
Picking getting into the Japan national squad was one of the best moments in my life, which I will never forget.
Nice one, Sabao. Hopefully we can actually get you a game this year. And along a similar note, Dougal Bedingfield, whilst not a playing highlight, a coaching highlight.
It's probably as a coach going to a World Cup. Yeah, it has to be.
I'm glad you said that. I would have been disappointed if you said. I was pleased with Dougal's answer. It is also my own cricketing highlight, the same Under-19 World Cup, going there as part of the Japan team. Of course, it says a little bit about my own playing and non-existent coaching career that just being manager was enough to be a highlight. Now, Vashanthan Jayakumar was another one of my guests, and he had quite an interesting story about his career highlights. It was more of a journey than a destination.
And I haven't done much, and I don't think there's any highlight. But yeah, I was not on JCA side, but in KCL. So initially, I was given captaincy in 2016. So at that time, almost every single year, and not even one game we won. So it was a horrible experience. And then I never really wanted to captain again. And the next year I resigned. And 1 year later, I accidentally took it up again. The captain.
Exactly, took up the captaincy.
Yeah, that year we didn't lose a single game. We won every game, and we became so probably that's from zero to that champion level. That was probably an achievement for me.
And speaking of journeys, Rahil Khanna is still on his.
I'm still finding it.
Still waiting for it.
I'm still looking, still looking for it.
It's probably a little bit mean of me, but I find myself curiously fascinated with particular defeats. Perhaps this says something about my own cricketing experience and how irked I am by a couple of losses that I've been part of. But I do like to ask my guests about any special defeat that sticks in the mind. And there's always some quite entertaining stories that come out. We'll start with Marcus Thurgate and listen to him speak about one of the rivalries that is alive and well in Japan cricket.
Yeah, I do have a big list, but I think there's one very fresh. The game against Wyverns this year, which somehow still annoying me. I don't know why.
When Kubota came back, so took out your whole tail.
Yeah, I just don't like losing against Wyverns because like they'll remind you for next time you play them. So I don't know, losing against Wyverns, no good.
as guilty as I feel about asking people to relive their lowest moments on the cricket field, it's remarkable how many people actually come back with 2 stories. Here's Jared Shearer.
Oh, I'll certainly give you 2. One was in Australia in the under-16 district final, playing against Damien Martin's team. We rolled 110. Should have chased easily, and we lost. And
Still angry 30 years later.
yeah, still angry 30 years later. Yeah. And I remember Damien Martin fielding when I went at about 3 or 4 or whatever it was. He was fielding close, and he kept telling me to go back to my island. Mate, get back to your island. Yeah, go back. To this day, I don't know what he's talking about. Don't know what he was. And the other one was in Japan was we lost the final against Sunil in 2004, I want to say. There weren't 2 neutrals, it was just 1 neutral in that square leg, and we ran out Daniel Mead by I don't want to say half pitch length, but it was quite the distance. And their umpire gave him not out, and of course Damien Mead went on to score a few runs, and they won. They chased our total down. I'm very good mates with Damien Mead, and I still give him Daniel Mead, and I still give him shit to this day.
He doesn't sound too scarred, does he? Now, another man who has 2 stories was Kendall Kadawaki Fleming, and his are a little more recent.
Yes, there are 2 that I can't split, and they're both from last season. So we lost 2 grand finals. The first one was in the 50-over format. They both hurt, but quick summary of both games. Like in the one-day final, I was captain. We batted first, made 330. You think you're in the game with 330, right? Yeah. Final. I knew that, we hadn't had it won because the other team had Jimmy Pearson, Marnus Labuschagne, Sam Hazlitt, Simon Malenko. Like, it was a pretty handy team. But we got Jimmy Pearson and Marnus out in the first 2 overs. So 2 for 8 off 2 overs, chasing 330. At that point, I thought the boys could be home here. But sure enough, Simon Malenko came in, scored 80 off about 30 balls, and they got it in about the 42nd over. So that one hurt.
Ouch.
The other one was the 2-day grand final. We had opposition 6 for about 130, and then the number 8 and 9 both scored hundreds. And then we got rolled. So obviously recency bias. They were both from last season, but both of them hurt.
They're going to take a topping for sure.
Yeah, I did feel a little guilty getting Kendall to relive that particularly fresh memory. But if that was bad, then Richie Bracefield went a step beyond.
Oh, yeah, look, it's probably losing to Kane Williamson when he was just a kid because he knocked us out, and I was the senior batsman in that team. He knocked us out of the regionals, and I was so pissed off about it that I broke up with my girlfriend at the time that night. So dark.
Yeah.
Awful day.
After that run of misery, perhaps it's better to move on to a lighter topic. And one of the questions I like to ask my guests is around the comical side of the game, and for them to tell me any funny stories that may have taken place. Certainly, it gives an insight into people's sense of humour. And I'll begin with Rahil Khanna, who likes a bit of slapstick in his cricket.
We playing with Shucks, maybe, or we just watching the match. And Marcus was keeper, and Ashley was the bowler fielder. He missed field or something he missed, and Dougal was so angry. And Chris Thurgate was playing. He was a fielder, and he chasing the ball. He tried to pick up the ball. When he bent, his trousers will come down, and everyone can see that he's underwear. So that was the funniest thing I have ever seen in the cricket field.
And when it comes to unfortunate incidents involving underwear, Jared Shearer goes one better.
Young fella that I'm not going to mention his name to protect his identity, but we were playing down in, it was back in the day when we used to go down to Prague, I think, in Colgate Cricket down there. Rob McKenna was running them back in the day, so he said, "Oh, come down and do a weekend with us every year for probably 4 or 5 years where I went down and play cricket and obviously enjoy ourselves off the field as well." And so we'd had a rather large night off the field and go onto the field to play that day. And some guy was fielding in gully. They thought he might not relieve himself, relieve a little bit of pressure. Turns out that he'd done more to relieve a little bit of pressure. He soiled himself. So had to run off the ground. Change his words.
We do try to keep things clean here on the Japan Cricket Podcast, including our underwear. And moving away from clothing and perhaps onto equipment, Dougal Bedingfield has some stories from back in Melbourne.
I've seen, some of the funny stuff I've seen was back in Melbourne and involved players just demolishing their own equipment.
Yeah.
Once they get into the rooms.
It's always funny to watch someone just completely lose their mind.
I remember my first captain, I think at first 11 level in Melbourne was a fella called Warren Jeffries, and he used to be so hard on himself when he got out. He used to open the batting and more often than not score runs, but he got out. He used to go into the rooms away from everyone else and talk to himself for an hour, just berating himself. He used to say stuff like, you're just a fool. You're an idiot. You're a charlatan. You're a fake. What do you think you're doing? Like an hour. It was hilarious.
Possibly need some help. It's quite possible that such strange behaviour is just an Australian thing. Here's Kendall.
I've seen a bloke get a bad decision and then proceed to walk all the way into the shower in his full kit. And that was pretty funny. And I've also seen something pretty similar where the bloke walked off and then he put all his gear in the bin and then kept walking to the change room. So those things make me laugh. I love watching some people when they get out, either delighting in someone else's misery.
All these people demolishing their equipment could use someone like Erika Oda at their club. Here's why.
You know, Yurika Kitamura, I told her Kim, she's like my start partner. We work in the same company, and after I started playing cricket, she also started playing. In the beginning, we started from collecting own gear and online from overseas. We are so excited and waited to get my first cricket gear. But I just remember when all gear came, we are so surprised because there are 4 gloves and 4 parts in the box. You know what I mean? We didn't know R means righty and L means lefty. So we just thought R means only right hand and L means only left hand, like that. So actually we ordered so many. This kind of funny memories with her are so many.
To be fair, that wasn't actually Erika's answer to my question about funniest thing, but it was a funny story, so I wanted to include it. One of the other questions I like to ask is merely for my own curiosity around the format of cricket that everybody enjoys. And I was somewhat surprised that one answer came through far stronger than the rest. Here's, well, almost everyone.
Test cricket. And I know that's not the right answer. We're trying to make cricket a little bit shorter if possible, but I love it. And there's just something beautiful and poetic about watching a test match. That's how I grew up watching cricket and tests. Good man.
Now I feel that Test cricket is something like my favorite now.
To watch test match cricket and play 2-day games. I've never been a one-day player.
Now I would say Test cricket. Previously, there used to be a draw would be an option back then. Now everything is playing even, so it's more exciting to watch Test cricket.
And I also enjoy watching Test the most too. But.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, to watch, I you just can't beat a Test match.
Well, there you have it. The votes are in, and the overwhelming victory is for Test cricket. You may have heard me muttering my agreement throughout that. Now, having asked that question about favourite formats, my next question was around any individual performances that might have been seen that players wish they could have done themselves. A lot of people actually gave examples from Japan, but the ones I've included here are from the international stage, famous innings that people may know about. And having heard about everyone's love of Test cricket, the first 2 answers I got were from one-dayers. Here's Shun Hashba.
Oh, definitely. World Cup finals, 1996 or 7. That was won by Sri Lanka. The final between Sri Lanka and Australia. And great Alvinder De Silva, 80th century. That was the best innings I've seen.
Yeah,
like
phenomenal.
Yeah, very steely innings, determined.
Indeed, World Cup finals are where heroes are made, and I've been lucky enough to attend a World Cup final. So imagine my surprise when Chris Thurgate mentioned the innings that I was lucky enough to see live as one of his favourites.
Adam Gilchrist at the World Cup final in the Caribbean when he had the squash ball in his head.
I was at that game.
Perfect.
In the stand. Don't remember much of it. The game that started late because of the rain, and by the time the game got going,
It was dark.
pretty well oiled. It's very dark when it finished. It wasn't just the white ball stuff that got mentioned, of course. Two of the more memorable test match innings of recent times both got a mention. And interestingly enough, they're both against the same opposition. I wonder why that is. Here's Sabarish Ravichandran.
Rishabh Pant's knock, recent knock.
Yeah, that was against the Aussies.
Yeah, against the Aussies.
Yeah.
Day 5.
Yeah, when the series.
Yeah, that was stunning.
That is kind of, dream stuff.
And because I'm English and we don't get to talk about English victories very often, here's Richie Bracefield.
Oh, look, I think it's hard to go past Ben Stokes' innings in the Ashes a couple of years ago, where he saved that test match and, just had everything. You had a tail ender at the other end who was defying all the odds and surviving. You had controversy with an LBW that probably would have been out, but they'd used up their appeal like the ball before and just
missed run out.
Yeah, it's just
the works.
phenomenal innings. Yeah. I could watch that whole thing ball by ball quite happily.
Yeah, needless to say, I went to bed when England was 7 down. Yes, I know. I am a stupid, stupid man going to bed early. Such are the pitfalls of watching cricket. Right. Anyway, that's the end of the cricket-specific questions that I like to ask all my guests, but I also finish off with some Japan-specific questions for those listening who may still be yet to visit this wonderful country. Now, most people wax lyrical about the food, and the food unquestionably is one of the great things about Japan. But that does come with a slight caveat, because there are some, let's just say, interesting foods that are on offer over here. So I'd like to ask people about those. Here's Dougal Benningfield talking about one of his early experiences.
Yeah, I'm kind of used to the weird stuff now, but initially when I got here, it was interesting. Like I wasn't used to, I'm like Shane Warne, just eat baked beans and sausages and that kind of stuff. So I came here, and I think my first date with the Japanese girl, we went to an izakaya, and she said, "What do you want to eat?" And I said, "Oh, just whatever. Use all the stuff. Japanese. You choose the food, And the first thing she chose was pickled squid guts with chili. She's like, "Oh, that's great. Yeah, I just wasn't ready. I just wasn't ready for it." I still can't eat natto. I just can't.
I can't. No.
Can't do it. I don't know why.
Yep, he did say pickled squid guts. Jared's also been here a long time. Let's hear his thoughts.
Well, shiokara. And then there's a version of shiokara, which is absolutely disgusting, called shuto, which is for shiokara. For anyone who doesn't know, usually squid, but to be other things, that's been fermented. And then often they'll add, once it's been fermented in usually salt, they'll add in some other ingredients. But yeah, fermented squid or the shuto stuff is fermented bonito intestine. And it's usually fermented in 6 months, and it smells and it tastes like it smells. It's actually disgusting.
Squid again. It's perhaps not surprising that slimy seafood features prominently in these answers. And as if to prove the point, or at least to hammer it home, here's Yoshi with his take on this.
Hoya. And what is Hoya? Hoya is sea creature, slimy sea creature. Yeah, I went to Miyagi Kesenuma for cricket for a smile. Me, Bebe, Scott McNaughton, and Rohan Overs. We taught cricket to Kesenuma kids. And we asked to Kesenuma guy, what kind of food we should eat in Kesenuma? And he says, Hoya. Hoya is a very special food in Kesenuma. Yeah. Hoya's sea creature, and Hoya's taste is everything, he said. spicy, salty, and
So you were convinced, you thought this sounds great. And then you had it.
I didn't trust him, but yeah, we went to izakaya.
I think I've seen the video.
Yeah,
People didn't enjoy it.
yeah, I tried for yeah. This is disgusting. If please try.
This is disgusting. Please try. Yoshi just demonstrating there how Japanese people do delight seeing non-Japanese people eating food that they just can't handle. It's not all seafood though. Here's Kendall talking about one of the foods that he saw on the menu but was not even brave enough to try. You'll probably understand why.
The worst. So I went to Japan with a few of my good mates a couple of years ago. And the first izakaya we went to, they had chicken sashimi on the menu. Like, I don't know if that's a piss take, but
it's a thing.
You couldn't pay me to eat what? So it's just raw chicken.
Yep.
That's disgusting. You couldn't pay me to eat that.
Yeah, that with the raw horse as well.
That's the worst.
Of course, when it comes to food, it is all just a matter of taste. And what's hideous to me may be your daily favorite dish. I was somewhat surprised to hear Shun Hashiba's take on what he doesn't like eating.
In Japan, I'm usually happy with everything. Probably like watermelon.
Yeah, not because of hate.
That is not an answer I was expecting.
Well, just because you have to poke out all those seeds and stuff, it kind of annoys me. Like, I'm too old with that,
Labor-intensive fruit.
Yeah, that's the one.
Beware of the watermelons. Now, I focused a little bit on the horrible foods, but as I mentioned earlier, the food in Japan is actually fantastic. And one of the questions I like to ask everyone is their favorite thing in Japan as well. And lots of great answers, lots of common answers. And perhaps the most common one is the food. And the man who put that best was probably our mate Richie again.
Oh, I think it has to be the food. The food and drinks. Look, everything's, even the cheap stuff is pretty amazing. And at least in Tokyo, like the best ramen you've ever had is 5 minutes in any direction. So yeah, hard to beat.
When talking about favorite things in Japan, safety was something that came up a lot. And indeed, Japan is an incredibly safe place to live, to raise a family, things. That answer came out quite a few times, but for Rahil Kano, wasn't having any of that. He went a different.
Everyone's answering same question, so boring, like safety. I'm thinking same, but that's so boring. So I would say women, they are very beautiful, cute, nice, kind, supporting, and understanding the culture, different culture, and let us play cricket. So I would say women's.
That is the best answer I've had so far. Given Rahil's answer, I was curious to ask a Japanese female if her response would be the men. It wasn't. So here's Erica to let us know what her favorite thing about Japan is.
I like watching sumo.
I like watching sumo as well. Yeah, it's good fun. Now, just imagine if there was a place where you could find good food, good drinks, beautiful people, and the occasional overweight person rolling around in their underwear. Well, it turns out Dougal Bedingfield knows just the place.
The Fuji Rock Festival.
Oh, it's a great answer. I miss it.
In August every year in Niigata. Yeah.
It's been a couple of years without.
It's just, 4 or 5 days of camping and music and beer. It's a wonderful time.
It's a wonderful time.
Recommend it.
Of course, it's not just the food, the people, and the parties that are great about Japan. There's plenty of places that are worth seeing as well, and that's a question I'd like to ask everyone. If they could pick one place that a visitor should go to, where would it be? Chris Thurgate, who loves playing and umpiring cricket matches at Fuji, unsurprisingly, had this answer.
You've got to somehow see Fuji. You have to see it, ideally as a cricketer, but even if it's just on the Shinkansen going past, because I think the symmetry of the mountain, it just it's just Japan in one shot, like how does the mountain so perfectly formed? It just sums up Japan in one shot, I think.
Fuji's not the only mountain in Japan, of course, and here's our groundsman, Yoshi Uehara, waxing lyrical about one of the others.
Yeah, one place is in Yamagata Prefecture, Yamadera.
Yamadera.
Yeah, Yama means mountain, Tera means temple. Yeah, this Yamadera is just one mountain. One mountain is temple. There are lots of things in one mountain. Yeah, so you like
I'm going to look it up.
mountain.
I do.
Yeah, from ground to top of mountain.
Is this it?
Yeah, Yamadera, yes.
I will link to that in the program notes. Okay, so Yamadera in Yamagata Prefecture.
Yeah.
So Yamadera, for those who are interested in mountains, and food, as we keep mentioning, crops up again and again. But one person mentioned a specific place to go just for the food. Prashantan Jayakumar mentioned Fukuoka as the best place to go if you're a foodie.
Food is also a major point of time. So anywhere you go, I think food has to be good to food. In that sense, I would say Fukuoka is very good. They have really good fresh food, especially if you go to the izakayas. Some awesome food you'll get there.
I can't believe I just used the term foodie. I hate that term. Who doesn't like food? We're all foodies. Goodness me. Well, back onto food, because it never seems to go away. Dougal, Mr. Bedingfield, he had a slightly different take on this question than all my other guests, and let's just say that his hospitality knows no bounds.
I'm not a big fan of tourist attractions and going and just taking a photo of Tokyo Tower or whatever. So I would say just come on an evening out with me in Tokyo and I'll show you some good food, some good bars and a good time.
You just got to pay for your drinks. Well, after your night out on the town with Dougal, you won't be too far away from Shinhashiba's option as his recommended place for everyone to visit.
I'll say SICG.
Yeah, that's the spirit. Good on you.
Yeah, especially the tea room. Like you invite any cricket guy to SICG and a tea room, they'll say, cricket is alive and well in Japan.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like you're in Japan when you're sat on the deck having a beer watching the game. That's for sure.
That's nice.
As regular listeners will know, there's not a whole lot of Japanese in my podcast, so I do like to finish at least with a Japanese word or phrase and its meaning as told by my guests. And a lot of people have mentioned just words, and I figured that was probably a little bit boring for this particular episode. So there are a couple of interesting phrases that came out. Two in particular I've chosen. And the first, well, you guessed it, it's that man Dougal again.
Sarumo ki kara ochiru. Means even monkeys fall from trees. It's just a good, I like that proverb. But the first pickup line I came up with, I learned was, aishiteru kedo kekkon wa dekinai.
I love you, but I can't marry you.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, I couldn't possibly allow an Australian to have the last word on this podcast. So since it's a question about the Japanese language, it was only sensible to get the take of a Japanese native. And it is probably the best answer of the year. Here she is again, Erica.
元気があれば何でもできる. You know what the meaning?
You can do anything if you're genki?
Yeah. If you have positive energy, like genki, nothing is impossible.
Perfect. I totally agree. That's a great way to finish. And you know what? I think that really is a great place to finish. I hope you've enjoyed listening to the highlights from season 1. I hope it's kept you warm through this cold, windy winter. I hope everyone is looking forward to the start of the cricket season in 2022 and, of course, season 2 of the Japan Cricket Podcast. As I mentioned at the top of the show, there is a feedback form out there. It'd be great if you could fill it out. You can find it in the show notes for this episode and also on the Japan Cricket Podcast Instagram page, which, if you're not following already, you should definitely go and follow. If you have time, please do give this show a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere else where you might be listening that allows you to give a review. It just helps to let other people know where the show is and boost my listening numbers, which would make this feel all a little bit more worthwhile. I have been enjoying it. I hope you've been enjoying it. Until I see you again, Kyoskete and Otsukaresama.